All right. This is not ESPN's 30 for 30. However, it is my 98 for 98, the 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. We're going to try to get it done in 98 days. That's probably not going to happen. However, I am going to get it done before the beginning of the season starts, which starts September 10th against those Dallas Cowboys. And we're at the 2003 season, which which actually happens to be the final season of Jim Fossil, and it happens to be the 79th season in the history of the New York Football Giants, 79th season in history of the New York Giants, the 84th season in history of the NFL. NFL started in 1920. Giants came around in 1925. The Giants are 5 years younger than the NFL is. So, but pivotal season in the history of the New York Giants. Now, I mean, it was man, if you're an old fart like me, well, I mean, it's what 20 years ago, so you don't have to be an old fart like me. But I mean, if you lived through the season, it was wow. I mean, capital P, painful. There was some gut-wrenching losses in the beginning, which I'm going to go over. And then they lost the final 8 games of the season. I mean, there was no offense. I mean, you think sometimes, the past couple of years, you're like, man, we stink on. I mean, it was ungodly pathetic, the last 8 games of the season. Oh, my goodness. However, due to the fact, okay, that it was that bad, and caused us to be 4-12, allowed us in 2004 draft to draft or trade for Eli Manning. Interesting, because had the Giants won a couple more games, you don't know who they would have wound up with. Now let's see. Let's just for a little. Let's go to the 2004 draft here. I forgot exactly where the Steelers picked at. 2004. Obviously, we know if the Giants won a couple more games, the Chargers would have had Eli Manning. That's their quarterback. Boom. Okay. Because if the Giants fell to like 11 or 12 or so, because the Steelers were 6-10, and they would pick a number 11. Had the Giants picked, let's see here. Once again, let's see here. The Jets were 6-10. There were a bunch of 6-10 teams. Buffalo was 6-10. The Giants, the Steelers were 6-10. Jets were 6-10. So the Jets picked 12. Buffalo picked 13. What were the Bears? Were the Bears 6-10? But Bears were 7-9. Okay, so the Giants would have picked anywhere from 11, 12, 13. What were the Texans? 5. Okay, all right. So the Giants would have drafted, if the Giants won just a couple more games, the Giants would have drafted 11, 12, 13, or maybe 14. All right. Now, if they drafted after the Steelers drafted Ben Roethlisberger. Now, had the Giants, maybe won one more game, they would have drafted like 8th or 9th or somewhere around there. They quite possibly would not have been able to maybe move up to trade with the Chargers, because the Giants just to go up 3 spots to swap to get Eli Manning to trade Phillip, because the Giants drafted Phillip Rivers, number 4, and for all intents and purposes, what I understand, Ernie Accorsi wanted Ben Roethlisberger, but he drafted on a whim. Not on a whim, but he had some kind of a feeling if he drafted Phillip Rivers, he might be able to get a trade with the Chargers, which is what ended up happening. So, but if the Giants dropped, the Giants won another game or so, they dropped farther down, like say 8, 9, 10 or somewhere around there. I don't know if they would have had enough firepower or if they would have wanted to trade enough firepower to try to go all the way up to number one and swap with the Chargers. So the Giants might have wound up with if the Giants won one more game and they would have drafted like say 8 or 9 or 10, they might have wound up. I think Ernie Corsi wanted if he couldn't have Eli Manning, he might have had Ben Roethlisberger. So what would the Giants organization quite possibly be been if they had Ben Roethlisberger though? Interesting, huh? But because the Giants were 4-12, the Chargers picked 1, Giants picked 4 in the 2004 draft, and the Giants still gave up quite a bit to go from 4 to 1. But the Giants were able to go up and swap picks with the Chargers, and of course get Eli Manning. Of course, the rest is history. But it would have been interesting. I mean, but because of this season being so unbelievably, horribly pathetic, it allowed the Giants to get Eli Manning. I said, if the Giants won a few more games, the Giants might, I don't know. I mean, if they picked 15, 16, 17, I don't know who they would have wound up with, right? I mean, I don't even know who was even there. I mean, because I mean, if they were picking in the middle of the pack, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, and Eli Manning all might have been gone. So, but because it was such a bad season, allowed the Giants to wind up with Eli Manning in the 2004 draft, and of course, as we said, get 2 more Super Bowl trophies. So, but I mean, this season was just very, very painful. So let's just start off here with the preseason games, shall we? They started off 1-3. The first game of the season was August 7th. They played the Patriots in Gillette Stadium. They lost 26-6. I'm sure to Tom Brady. Okay, a very young Tom Brady. Actually, he was probably in his 20s at the time. And it's hard to believe, guys. Hard to believe that, but for the first time since on over 20 years, we're going to start a season. Here it is, 2023, and for the first time in over 20 years, we're going to start a season without Tom Brady being a quarterback. Wow, think about it, huh? All right, the Giants' second game was at home against the Carolina Panthers at Giant Stadium, obviously, and they lost 20-10. The third game, the Giants were home to the Jets, okay, at Giant Stadium, and on August 23rd, they lost to the Jets 15-14. Then the final, at least they snuck in a win there. Okay. The final game was on August 28th. They were away against the Baltimore Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium. They would win 30-24. All right. Oh boy. All right. So, as I said, but this was the final season for Coach Fossil. I'll go over this first before we want to go over the season. Fossil said that the Giants, who were 4-4 after halfway through the season, right? So they were there. They were right there. Once again, let me cheat here. I forgot. Well, I mean, they would have had at 4-4, they would have had a shot, but the 2 wild card teams were both 10-6, so the Giants really would have had to step it up. The Giants would have gone 6-2 in the final 6. But I mean, still 4-4 halfway through, you're still you're not out of the playoff hunt. But let's see. So halfway through the season, the Giants were 4-4 in 2 games out of the NFC East lead. Okay. At midseason, but they lost their next game by 20 points at home to the Falcons, and then that was a defeat which ignited a season-ending 8-game losing streak. On December 17th, after the 6th straight loss, so the Giants were 4-10 at the time. Jim Fossil and the Giants jointly announced he would not return to the team in 2004. I guess he figured maybe he was going to wind up getting fired or whatever it was. I mean, the Giants had a couple of injuries in there, but I mean, it just I don't know. I guess he just thought he was going to get fired. I guess the Giants thought that, the Giants let him know they're going to fire him. So it was just, I guess, a mutual kind of thing. But one thing that always shocked me. I mean, you take a team that they didn't have a ton of talent, all right? And in his first 6 seasons, he took the Giants without a ton of talent to 3 playoff appearances, a Super Bowl appearance. They had, 3 winning seasons. They had an 8-8 season. They had 2 7-9 seasons in his first, So I'm like, man, he's going to get another coaching job. He's got to. But so after Fossil departed the Giants, it was widely assumed he would secure another head coaching job. I thought so too. I thought somebody would give him a chance. I mean, his first head coaching job in the NFL, and he takes a team to the Super Bowl. Wow. But several interviews failed to produce an offer. In 2004, he was hired as a consultant by the Ravens, and the following year, he was named their offensive coordinator. But Baltimore's offense remained ranked in the bottom third of the league, and early in the 2006 season, he had an unpleasant parting with head coach Brian Billick, who had been one of his closest friends. So then after leaving Baltimore, Fossil spent 2 seasons in the NFL game as an NFL game analyst with Westwood One Radio. And actually, I remember listening to him on the radio. I do remember listening to him because I remember I had the radio, the station Westwood One back then. But coaching was still in his blood. So in 2009, he became the head coach and general manager and president of the Las Vegas Locomotives of the now defunct United Football League. They won 2 championships. They won the first 2 championships, and they were in the championship game all 3 years. And the last year they were undefeated. But they lost. I think they lost the championship in the third. They won the first 2, but they lost the third one. Fossil said. He said, "We had a good team, and I loved it. I loved that. It was a lot easier than being a head coach in the NFL. The league ceased operations in 2012. So, and sadly, Coach Fossil, he passed away at age 71. Where are we at here? Where's he at? Come on. Up. There we go. This is from Giants.com. Jim Fossil, who led the Giants to 3 playoff appearances, playoff berths, and a Super Bowl, and mentored some of the franchise's greatest player in 7 seasons as the team's coach, has passed away. He was 71. I believe it was June 9th, 2021. Yeah. So, I mean, just passing away at such a young age. Such a shame. Such a shame. And he was such a nice guy, too. Nice guy. But, all right, so let's go to the Giants draft here real fast, shall we? Now, the Giants, their draft, I mean, they had a lot of picks. They had a lot of compensatory picks. Their first pick was William Joseph from Miami, Florida. They had pick number 25 as a defensive tackle. Now, the one thing here with William Joseph, I mean, he played 6 seasons in the NFL, but once again, they weren't all with the Giants. And he played his final 2 seasons was with Oakland. So he played 2003, 4, 5, and 6 with the Giants. But they took a defensive lineman. I believe there was if I remember correctly, there was 9 other defensive linemen taken in the first round before him. So I mean, did they take him? Was he a first round grade, or did they just take him because we needed a defensive lineman? Kind of makes you wonder. But in the second round from Troy, they got O.C. Yomenure in the second round. Oh, what a pick! What a second round pick. Then in the third round, once again, they took Visante Shanko, a tight end from Morgan State. He had an 11-year career. The problem was, once again, he didn't play that long with the Giants. Was it 4 years? I know he played a ton of years with Minnesota. He played 4 seasons with the Giants, and then he played 5 years with Minnesota, 1 year with New England, 1 year with Tennessee. So he had an 11-year career, but only 4 of it was with the Giants. I mean, after, Giants probably could have used them. I mean, if they had Shockey, right? Shockey breaks his leg in 2007. If he was still on the roster, the Giants would have Asante Shanko. I mean, wasn't that bad? He wound up with 245 receptions in his career. All right, then in the fourth round, it took Roderick Bobbers. I'm going to say defensive back. He only played 2 seasons. That was not such a good pick. But in the fifth round, they took some guy by the name of David Deal, guard from Illinois. He played 11 seasons, 2003 to 2013. Fantastic pick for the New York Giants. Fantastic pick. Then in the sixth round, they had 3 picks because they had 2 compensatory picks. They took Willie Ponder, who was a wide receiver. He played 4 seasons from 2003 to 2006. Then they took this wound up being a good pick, but once again, it was Frank Walker, a defensive back. He had a 9-year career. He was from Tuskegee, but once again, same thing. He had a lengthy career. 1, 2. He only played 4. They had a 9-year career. Only 4 years were with the Giants. Once again, there's so many times back then they draft a guy and they never re-sign him. He plays 3-4 years with them and they never re-sign him. I mean, so many times they did that over and over again. I mean, how are you supposed to build a team a real long, when you just draft guys and you just keep drafting guys, just overdrafting guys. Anyway, they took, and then of course in the other 6th round pick, compensatory pick, they took Mr. Helmet Catch, David Tyree from Syracuse. He played from 2003 to 2009. Obviously, Giants without his helmet catch, they may not have won their 3rd Super Bowl. 7th round, they took Charles Drake, a defensive back from Michigan. He never played in the NFL. Then their final 2 compensatory picks were in round 7. Wayne Lucier, a guard from Colorado. He played 2 seasons in the NFL, and that was it. But their final pick was Kevin Walter, a wide receiver from Eastern Michigan. He played 10 seasons in the NFL, but once again, you know what I'm going to say. Let's say he didn't play any. He was released in training camp. The Giants released him, and he wound up playing a 10-year career in the NFL. He played 7 seasons with Houston. His first 3 seasons with Cincinnati. But his final 7 seasons was with the Houston Texans. In 7 seasons, he had 326 catches. So he caught like 45 balls a year for him for 7 years. A 7th round pick. You tell me the Giants couldn't use that like on his roster? They released him. And he wound up with a 10-year career in the NFL. Ah, man. So, I mean, the Giants made some good picks and this, that, and the other thing, but once again, guys like the 7th round pick who winds up having a 10-year career in the NFL, none of them are with you. And I said, time and time again, draft after draft after draft, the Giants wind up drafting a guy. He'll play 3 or 4 seasons with them, and they just let him go, just so they can go out and draft somebody else. Not good at all. All right, so what does Wikipedia, I don't think it was much, have to say about, they don't got much to say about the 2003 Giants. 2000 season was the Giants' 79th season in the National Football League and their 7th final under head coach Jim Fassel. The team failed to duplicate their 2002 season's playoff appearance, instead only winning 4 games and missing the playoffs for the first time since 2001. Finishing the season on an 8-game losing streak, Jim Fassel was fired after the 2003 season and was replaced by Tom Coughlin. So once again, right, because of, Coughlin was certainly a better coach than Fassel was. So, because of the bad season, we allowed us to have Tom Coughlin, all right, and Eli Manning. So I mean, sometimes out of the darkest depths of the abyss shines a ray of light, right? So so good things came out of this bad season. All right, so let's what do we got here? Let's go over some of the Giants statistics. And I said Kerry Collins, he got injured toward that 8-game losing streak. He missed a couple of games. We had Jesse Palmer. He took over for him, and this would be Jesse Palmer's second. He only played 2 seasons in the NFL, 2002 and 2003. So Jesse Palmer started in 3 games during those that losing streak. He was 0-3, but Kerry Collins was 4-9. Kerry Collins completed 56.8% of his passes. He had 13 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Jesse Palmer threw 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. The Giants defense gave up 25 touchdown passes. They only had 10 interceptions. I mean, the running game was just strictly Tiki Barber. He had 1,216 rushing yards. He also had 461 passing yards. So, I mean, he had almost 1,700 total yards. But after Tiki, they had Dorsey Levens. Tiki had 1,216. Dorsey Levens had 197 yards. The next running back after that was Delvin Joyce at 39 yards. Brian Mitchell had 20 rushing yards. I mean, so they had their running game was, they had 1,559 yards rushing. They averaged under 100 yards a game rushing. They averaged 4 yards a carry. They only had 6 touchdowns all season long. I mean, their offense was really, really bad. Really bad. What do we got here? Tiki Barber had 69 receptions. Ike Hilliard had 60. Amani Toomer had 63 receptions. Jeremy Shockey had 48, but Jeremy Shockey missed 7 games. He only played 9 games. But Ike Hilliard missed 4. He missed 3 games. Kerry Collins missed 3 games. Jeremy Shockey missed 7 games. So we had a bunch of guys miss time. But but we had Darnell Dinkins, Willie Ponder, Visante Shanko, Jim Finn caught some passes, Marcellus Rivers, Tim Carter. I think this might have been his final season with the Giants. He was a 2nd-round pick of the Giants. How many more seasons did he have in here with the Giants? Tim Carter. Oh, I'm sorry. No, he had 2 more seasons with the Giants. My bad. Let's see, we got Tim Carter. Let's see here. Jeremy Shockey, David Tyree, Amani Toomer, Ike Hilliard. So, between Hilliard, Toomer, Shockey, and Barber, there was some talent there, but it was not good. They had Matt Bryant as their kicker, and they also had Brett Conway as a kicker. Matt Bryant would be instrumental in one of the Giants' losses. I'll go over that in a minute. They had Jeff Beagles, who kicked for the Giants for quite a while. He averaged 40.5 yards a kick. What did the Giants have? The Giants had 45 sacks. Not too bad, not too shabby. Michael Strahan had 18.5 sacks. Another banner season for him. But the Giants gave up. The Giants gave up 44 sacks. Right? What did the Giants average here? Giants. I mean, their offense was. They averaged 15.2 points per game. They were 30th in the league out of 32 teams. 15 points a game. But I mean, it wasn't so much in the beginning. It was the final 8 games. The final 8 games, they scored 7 points, 7 points or less 5 times, I think, in the final 8 games. It was just ungodly. They had a streak there where they scored 7 points. They scored 7 points. They scored 7 points. They scored 3 points. Because I'm down here in South Jersey, so I can't watch the Giants all the time, but I have the Sunday ticket, so therefore that allowed me to watch the Giants. It was just painful. Those games, the Giants would score 7 points, and that was it. And then the next week they scored another 7 points, and that was it. And then the next week they scored another. I'm like, and then the next week they scored 3 points. I'm like, 4 games in a row we scored 1 time. And I'm like, what is going on here? Why can't we score another point? What is going on? It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. They gave up 24 points a game, which was 29th in the league. So it was just overall just a bad season for the Giants. But as I said, because it wound up being so bad, wound up having some good come out of it. Remember, we got Tom Coughlin and we got Eli Manning. So, I mean, it started off okay. The Giants, hosted the St. Louis Rams. I mean, who a very good team. the greatest show on turf, Kurt Warner, this, that, and the other thing, who obviously the next season, Kurt Warner would be the Giants starting quarterback in the beginning of the season, right? But I mean, the Rams had a very good team. The Giants at home, they won 23-13. Then the following week, this one was just unbelievable. This one was just unbelievable. It was a Monday night game. Bill Parcells was coaching the Cowboys. So the Cowboys came in. Their kicker was it Cundiff? I'm just gonna try to cheat here. Kicked 7 field goals. Billy Cundiff, 7. He tied an NFL record by kicking 7 field goals against the Giants. But anyway, the Giants one home. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There was 14 scores in the game. 14. I mean, but the Cowboys dominated in the first half. They were winning 20-7 at halftime because those Bill Parcells was coaching the Cowboys at the time, so they came in, and they dominated the first half. This was a Monday night game, and then they kicked another field goal in the beginning of the third quarter. So the Cowboys were winning 23-7. Finally, the Giants started coming back. So they were down 23-7, and with 11 seconds to go, Matt Bryant kicked a 30-yard field goal to put the Giants up 32-29. So the Giants outscored the Cowboys. What the heck would that be? 25-6 over the final. Like the next, what would that be? 24 minutes or so. To outscore them, said with 11 seconds, the Giants were up 32-29. And if you listen to the replay of it, like on YouTube or so, you'll hear John Madden. He said, "Yeah, the Giants, they something along the lines. They look bad in the beginning, but they came on. They this, that, and the other thing. Kerry Collins, this and that, and the other thing, and they kicked the field goal with 11 seconds." And John Madden said this. And with 11 seconds to go, the Giants got themselves the win. Oh, there you go. As they say in the Water Boy, Mama's wrong again, didn't she? Yeah, well, John Madden, he was wrong. 11 seconds to go. Matt Bryant lines up, and the Giants decided to squib kick it. Well, he squib kicked it, and he kind of came in the middle of the field, and it just kept squibbling and squibbling and squibbling and squibbling and squibbling, and hey, it went out of bounds at the 1-yard line. No time went off the clock. Now the Cowboys have the ball at the 40-yard line. Quincy Carter. The Giants go into a prevent defense, which, what's that do? It prevents you from winning, right? Yes, it does, and it did in this play. Yes, it did. Quincy Carter drops back the pass. Giants rush straight. Quincy Carter standing back there for about a day and a half. Actually, it was only 7 seconds, but throws the ball. I can't remember his name. Bryant. It wasn't Des Bryant. What's his name? Bryant. Antonio Bryant. He caught a there was a 26-yard reception. It went from the 40 to the Giants 34. He got out of bounds. 7 seconds came off the clock. 4 seconds were left. And, of course, Billy Cundiff kicks a 51 or 52-yard field goal. What was it? 52-yard field goal as time expires to tie the game. And, of course, the Cowboys wind up. Billy Cundiff kicked a 25-yard field goal in overtime, his 7th field goal of the game. And the Cowboys came away with a 35-30. I mean, the Cowboys were a decent team that year because they went to the playoffs. But, I mean, it was just with 11 seconds to go. The Giants decided to squib kick it and wound up costing them. And the ball went out of bounds, and it cost them the game. Giants, should have been 2-0, but they were 1-1 after that debacle. Then next week, they wound up winning. They played in Washington. They won in overtime, 24-21. So now the Giants are 2-1. Well, then the Giants would lose their next 3 games. They lost to the Miami Dolphins at home, 23-10. Then the Giants played. But this goes to show you, these next 3 games, the Giants scored 10 points. They scored 6 points. They scored 10 points. Then toward the end of the season, the final 8 games, I'll go over those games. They were just unbelievable, horrible. But so the Giants lost 23-10 to the Miami Dolphins at home. Then they would travel on the road, and they lost to Tom Brady and the New England Patriots 17-6. Now the Giants are 2-3. So now this game here, this was the second game, all right, that the Giants blew. Should have won, but they blew it. They lost 14-10 at home to the Eagles. Now, once again, the Eagles were a good team, but the Giants totally outplayed the Eagles in this game. Giants had 25 first downs. The Giants lost 14-10. The Giants scored 10 points. They had 25 first downs, 339 yards. You know, they had 2 turnovers, but they had 180 yards rushing, 174 yards passing. The Eagles had 134 yards of total offense, and the Eagles had 9 first downs. They had 47 yards passing, 47, and they still won the football game. They had 87 yards rushing, 47 yards passing, and they won the football game with 9 first downs. They even had 2 turnovers. Giants sacked them 3 times. So what winds up happening? I mean, this was almost like the miracle. I mean, the Eagles, there's like the miracle of the Meadowlands, like 342,985. It's just. I mean, with the Deshaun Jackson, with the miracle of the Meadowlands of 78. This one you can almost call a miracle of the Meadowlands too. I mean, it's just unbelievable. No wonder why I can't stand the Eagles. So the Giants were winning 10-7. The Eagles scored with 3 minutes to go in the first quarter. Brian Westbrook was a fantastic football player. So the Eagles scored with 3 minutes to go in the first quarter. The whole rest of the game, their offense didn't score. Didn't score at all. The whole rest of the game. So with a minute, like 25 to go, the Giants had the ball in their own territory, and they punt the ball. Well, the Eagles sent Brian Westbrook back there, right? A phenomenal player. So instead of, instead of punting it out of bounds and not giving them an opportunity to return it, right? I mean, even instead of kicking it 45 yards, well, say you kick it 35 yards and it goes out of bounds, so you lose 10 yards of field position, whatever. But they don't return the ball. Okay, so what do? They kick the ball to Brian Westbrook, and what's he do? Yep, don't gotta be a mind reader. He runs it back 84 yards for a touchdown on a punt return. So with 1:16 to go, the Eagles scored a touchdown to put them up 14-10. Now the Giants only scored 10 points all game. They got the ball back. They didn't score. They lost 14-10 because of a punt return. 1 minute and 16 seconds left to go in the game. So instead of punting the ball out of bounds and not letting them return it, all right, and having them march down the field, which they quite possibly may not have done in 1:16, they punted the ball to a fantastic athlete, a fantastic football player, Brian Westbrook, and he runs it back 84 yards for a touchdown. Unfreaking believable. It was like with Deshaun Jackson. I forgot what year that was. I guess I just try to block this stuff out. But when the other miracle of the Meadowlands too, they call when they punted the ball down the middle of the field, he picks it up and runs it back, another punt return for a touchdown. It just. Oh my goodness! So the Giants, this is another game the Giants blew. So the Giants are 2-4. The Giants really should have been 4-2. Giants should have been 4-2. But once again, it all paid off for the Giants because of this, and because then the Giants should have been 4-2. They won their next 2 games, so the Giants would have been 6-2 at the midway point. Should have been 6-2 with better coaching, better play decisions, and all of that. The Giants really should have been 6-2. And then, of course, they lost their last 8 games. But I would say once again, because of the bad play calling and the way the execution of the plays and all of that, the Giants, were 2-4. And once again, I said because all of this bad stuff that happened allowed them to get Eli Manning and Tom Coughlin. While the Giants would win their next 2 games, they beat Minnesota 29-17, and then at home they had a overtime win against the Jets 31-28. Right, so now the Giants are 4-4. But now, and this is the final 8 games. This is where the Giants scored 7 points, 10 points, 13 points, 7 points, 7 points, 7 points, 3 points. The final game of the season, I guess they just try to win one for the Gipper. I don't know. Somehow they scored 24 points in the final game. But I remember watching these games on DirecTV. the Sunday ticket, and game after game is 7 points, 10 points, 13 points, 7 points, 7 points, 7 points, 3 points. I'm like, what is going on here? I know, as I said, I know Kerry Collins got injured. I think it was one, it might have been the Washington game. It was like maybe the 13th game of the season, and Jesse Palmer came in. He played a couple of games. But so the Giants, what started all, the Giants were 4-4. They hosted the Atlanta Falcons and lost by 20 points at home to the Atlanta Falcons. They scored 7 points. They lost 27-7. Now the Giants are 4-5. Then, of course, they go on the road, play the Eagles, who are a very good team. They lost 28-10. Then the next week they played Tampa Bay Buccaneers and they lost 19-13. That Tampa Bay had a very good team because Tampa Bay the year before won the Super Bowl. So now the Giants are 4-7. Then, of course, now this is where they score 4 games in a row. They score single-digit points 4 games in a row. They lost a home game to Buffalo 24-7. They lost a home game to the Redskins 20-7. They went on the road and they lost 45-7 to the Saints. And then they lost to the Cowboys on the road 19-3. Now the Giants are 4-11, and the final game of the season they hosted Carolina at home. Carolina back then was a good team, right? Because if I can get this here, right? Yeah, they played some good teams. I mean, they played the Patriots, who went to the Super Bowl. They played a couple games against the Cowboys, who were playoff teams. They played a couple games against the Eagles, who went to the championship game. They played the final game of the season against Carolina. They lost at home 37-24 to Carolina, but Carolina went to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, the Giants played some very good teams this season. But, I mean, but there was the 4-12. They wound up. It was just painful. Very, very painful. I mean, I said those 2 losses, the one to the Cowboys and one to the Eagles, especially early on, I said they should have been 4-2. They won their night. They could have been 6-2 at one point with 8 games remaining. But I said, it was just very, very painful. So, all right. So let's go here. What does Wikipedia have to say about the 2003 NFL season? The 2003 NFL season was the 84th regular season in history of the National Football League. Regular season play was held from September 4th to December 28th. Due to damage caused by the Cedar Fire, Qualcomm Stadium was used as an emergency shelter, and thus the Miami Dolphins San Diego Charger regular season match on October 27 was instead played at Sun Devil Stadium, the home field of the Arizona Cardinals. This was the first season in NFL history where every team won at least 4 games. Wow. The playoffs began on January 3rd, 2004. The NFL title was won by the New England Patriots when they defeated the Carolina Panthers in the Super Bowl at Reliance Stadium in Houston, Texas on February 1st. This was the last season until the 2016 NFL season, where neither of the previous Super Bowl participants made the playoffs. Wow. Go figure. Go figure. Tampa Bay and the Raiders. Tampa Bay, what were they? What was Tampa Bay? Oh, Tampa Bay, they fell to 7-9. And the Raiders, what were they? Oh, wow, the Raiders plummeted to 4-12. Wow. All right, so let's go over to the AFC, right? Shall we? All right, so the Patriots won, and Mr. Tom Brady and his neighborhood, right? They won the AFC East with a record of 14-2. AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens won with a record of 10-6. And the AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts were 12-4. The Titans were 12-4 too, but the Titans wound up as the wild card team. Let's see. Indianapolis Colts finished ahead of Tennessee in the AFC South, better on a head-to-head sweep. So Peyton Manning swept the Tennessee Titans both games. So that's why Indianapolis wound up winning the AFC South. The Chiefs had a record of 13-3. They won the AFC West, and the Denver Broncos had a record of 10-6. So they were the other wild card team. So in the playoffs, what do we got here? First round, the Colts defeated the Broncos at the RCA Dome 41-10, and Tennessee beat the Baltimore Ravens 20-17 in Baltimore. So in the divisional round, Peyton Manning beat the Chiefs 38-31. I remember that was a very good game. Very, very, very entertaining game. I don't. There weren't that many punts in that game. Weren't many punts. That might have been the game. I'm not exactly sure where the Colts may not have punted at all. That might be possible. I have to check that out. But in the other game at Gillette Stadium, Tom Brady beat the Tennessee Titans 17-14. So setting up a championship game. This is one of the first of many, right? Where Tom Brady faced off against Peyton Manning, right? And in this one, Tom Brady at home beat Peyton Manning 24-14, sending the New England Patriots to the Super Bowl. So in the NFC, the Eagles were 12-4, and the Cowboys were 10-6. Cowboys got one of the wild card teams. Once again, the Cowboys were coached by Bill Parcells. The Green Bay Packers won the NFC North with a record of 10-6. NFC South, the Carolina Panthers won with a record of 11-5, and in the NFC West, the St. Louis Rams had a record of 12-4, so they won, and the Seattle Seahawks were 10-6, so they were the other wild card team. Now, that one game where the Giants lost to the Cowboys, where quite possibly the Giants should have won with 11 seconds to go. They had to lead with 11 seconds to go, and they were kicking off, and they still lost the game. Now, if the Cowboys lost that game, they would have finished 9-7, and they may not have made the playoffs because the Minnesota Vikings were 9-7 as well. So I'm not sure who would have won the head-to-head, the tiebreaker on that one. But if the Cowboys didn't get lucky and the Giants blew the game pretty much, the Dallas Cowboys may not have made the playoffs. So that was a very pivotal game for the Cowboys, even though it was the second game of the season. So, all right, so those are the playoff participants. So in the playoffs, we got wild card round. Carolina knocked off Bill Parcells and the Cowboys 29-10. And in Lambeau Field, this game, I remember this one. The Packers won 33-27 in overtime. Can't remember the quarterback's name of the Seahawks. I'm going to pop it up. Matt Hasselbeck. Yep, there you go. Matt Hasselbeck. They went in overtime, and Matt they called it heads or whatever it was. It came up heads or whatever they called it. Matt Hasselbeck goes to him, we want the ball, and we're going to score. Oh, yeah. Well, somebody scored, but it wasn't Seattle Seahawks. So it was on the first drive, I believe it was, of overtime, I think. Hasselbeck drops back to pass. He throws the ball, gets picked off, run back for a touchdown. So there was a score, but it wasn't the Seattle Seahawks. The Packers picked it off. Pick six. Packers win in overtime 33-27. So in the divisional round, we have the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field beat the Packers 20-17, and the Carolina Panthers knocked off the St. Louis Rams. The greatest show on turf and all that and everything. Well, that started breaking up because this is the final game that Kurt Warner quarterbacked the St. Louis Rams. Was this loss here? So the Carolina won in overtime once again. That was another. They had some good games. Good games. And the Super Bowl was a phenomenal game this year too. This season was an absolute treat. I mean, there were some duds, but there were a lot of good games. Good, exciting games in the playoffs here. So I said, Carolina beat the Rams 29-23 in overtime, setting up the championship game. So this was the first, this was what? I think the third of four championship games in a row for the Eagles. They went to 4 straight championship games in the NFC. So this is the third one in a row they lost. They finally won the next season in 2004. They won the championship, the NFC championship, and they went to the Super Bowl, but they lost to the Patriots. But anyway, that's the next season. But anyway, in the championship game, Carolina shut down the Eagles, beat them 14-3. So that set up the Super Bowl between Tom Brady and the Carolina Panthers. And just quickly, just going over it real fast here. What do we got here? I got to scroll all the way down. All right, so there's no scoring in the first quarter. But then the 24 points was scored in the second quarter. New England, Deion Branch scored on a 5-yard touchdown pass to put New England up 7-0. Steve Smith, great player, great player. Steve Smith caught a 39-yard touchdown pass from Jake Delhomme to tie it up at 7. Then it just goes to show you the final 18 seconds of the second quarter. There was 2 scores in the final 18 seconds. 18 seconds ago, David Givens had a 5-yard touchdown reception from Tom Brady, put New England up 14-7. Well, then the Carolina got the ball back, and they went 21 yards in 2 plays, and as final seconds ticked off the second quarter, Casey kicked a 50-yard field goal to make it 14-10 at half. There was no scoring in the third quarter, but then they scored 37 points in the fourth quarter. There was more points scored in the fourth quarter than in the first, second, and third combined. All right, so Antoine Smith, 2-yard touchdown reception for the Patriots, putting them up 21-10. Deshaun Foster had a 33-yard touchdown run, and they had to try for a 2-point conversion, but that was no good, so it made it 21-16 favor of the Patriots. Mushin Muhammad had an 85-yard touchdown reception from Jake Delhomme. 2-point pass was no good. So I mean, if they just kept going kept kicking extra points, but anyway, the 2-point pass was no good. So now they're up 22-21. If they kicked the 2 extra points, they would have been winning 24-21. Anyway, Mike Vrabel had a 1-yard touchdown reception from Tom Brady. There was a 2-point run, was good. So now put the New England up 29-22 with 1:08 to go. Ricky Prohl had a 12-yard touchdown reception from Jake Delhomme. Their extra point made it 29-29, but unfortunately they left 1:08 on the clock. Too much time. With 4 seconds left to go, Adam Vinatieri kicked a 41-yard field goal to send the New England Patriots home with a Super Bowl victory at 32-29. I mean, it's just a very, 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 very exciting game. All the scoring was in the second quarter and the fourth quarter, but the fourth quarter was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I mean, New England went ahead. The Panthers came back. New England went ahead. Panthers came back. Panthers actually took the lead 22-21. There was 29-22. There was 29-29. There was, it was just really. I mean, this was all in all, especially for the Giants, it was obviously it was a bad season, but once again, because they were so bad, they got to choose pick number 4 in the following draft, which allowed them to trade to get Eli Manning, but also because, Jim Fassel, he decided he wasn't coming back. The Giants fired him. However you want to look at it, allowed us to get Tom Coughlin. So out of all of the badness, there was definitely some goodness to it, without question. So the Giants really, really lucked out. But also, I said, I mean, there was some very, very good and exciting playoffs. I mean, 2003 was it was a very good season, but not so much for the Giants. The Giants wouldn't reap the fruits of the bad 2003 season for at least a couple of years, because 2004. They were 5-4. The Giants were 5-4, right in the playoff hunt, and they decided to hand the reins over to Eli Manning. So they went from 5-4 to 5-10. They didn't win their final game of the season. They didn't win their next game until the final game of the season, when they beat the Dallas Cowboys at home. I know that because my son and I were there. That was a great game. But anyway, so 2004 was not good for the Giants, but then 2005, 6, 7, 8 was the first and only time that the New York Giants went to the playoffs 4 straight seasons. That was Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning. So that was very, very good. Well, as I said, that pretty much wraps up the 2003 season for the Giants. It was once again, as I said, it was gut-wrenching. It was hard to watch. I mean, because I watched every game. It was hard to watch. But I said, out of all of that, a lot of good came from it. So, and I said, that wraps up the the 2003 season. And I said, I'll be back again with the 2004 season, which just happened to be the 80th season in the history of the New York Football Giants. I'll see you then.